Good afternoon and welcome to our 13th, lucky for some, unlucky for others, show of the UK Genesis podcast. My co-host, since Ben has moved on to bigger and better things maybe, is now Joe Waltham. Welcome, Joe. Hi, how are you doing today?
Hi Gary, hi everyone. I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And we're joined by Paul Oaten today. How are you doing?
Hello everybody, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, excellent. If you want to get into ask any questions, then you should know by now, but in case you're not, then send us questions on Twitter, hashtag UK Genesis, and we'll get them asked to Paul throughout the show. First, want to say thank you very much for joining us, both the viewers and for our guests and co-hosts today. Let's kick off with Paul. Can you tell us kind of what you do, where you are, and a bit of an introduction?
Sure. Hi, I'm Paul Oaten. I run a small freelance business called PCA Web, and I build websites and provide ancillary and related support and maintenance services to predominantly small businesses and non-profits, and I'm based down here in Bath in Somerset.
Nice. We were just talking a bit about how Bath is a nice location for technology companies. How are you finding it there?
Bath is a real gem, actually. I live outside of Bath, about 5 miles away, down the end of a country lane. But one of the great things about Bath is it's become, over the years, sort of a technology hub. There are lots and lots of tech startups, concentrated and focused in the middle of Bath. And there's an excellent co-working space which was put together a couple of years back as a business startup, in fact. And that's where I am today, and that's where this lovely backdrop is. So I can't podcast from home. The broadband is too bad. But here in this office is absolutely superb facility. So I've come down here today.
Well, thank you for travelling in to be able to come and chat to us today. So tell me, what is your main service that you offer people then?
Well, most people come to me because they're looking to have a website built for them. That's usually how the conversation starts off. Mostly it then progresses on to me asking them, or put in more of a consultant hat on, shall we say, and trying to find out why they want a website, what the website's supposedly going to do for them, what their expectations are, all that sort of stuff. And that really sort of leads into a discussion about a discussion which eventually becomes sort of a discovery process for both parties. Very often customers will come to me and they'll know that they want a website, but they don't really know why. The initial process really is to try and tease out what their expectations are, because they all have different expectations. And a lot of people that come to me don't really know. They don't really know, what the process is, what's involved in putting a website together, and what to expect as an end result. Some have hugely inflated expectations of putting a brochure site up and becoming, eventually ending up on the first page of Google and getting loads of customers as a result. Some have, more realistic expectations, but everybody's different. So the initial conversation is really important.
Okay. And who are your customers mainly? Small businesses, or?
They're mainly small businesses. I've dealt with a range of different clients. Small businesses. I've done a few charity pieces of work for charities and non-profits. I've worked with 2 or 3 country estate organisations where there's sort of an office of operations. They've got some services or amenities or attractions to offer members of the public, and they want to publicise that with a website. So a range of different people. So somebody said once when they were asked who's your typical client, then they answered anybody who can write me a check. It's sort of true with me, although I realise that does cause me problems with my own workflow and lots of other things. So they tend to be my customers, but yeah, I've got a range of different people that I've worked for.
Okay, and are they tend to be local people to you, sort of local businesses, or do you work across the UK or across the world?
Yes, not always local. Mostly based in the UK, but far and wide really. I've worked with people. I've worked with the country estate on the Isle of Islay in Scotland. Mm-hmm. I've worked with the country estate in near Arundel just in the last 12 months. There's one in Wiltshire. Those are some of the country estate type concerns.
Yeah.
But most of the rest of them tend to be in the local area, and that's really where I like to draw the work from. Not because I'm running off to client meetings every 5 minutes as soon as somebody emails me or gets on the phone, but I just find it easier if at some point in the process it's nice to go out and actually meet people face to face and talk directly to them. So other than that, yes, I've had customers come to me from Australia, the US. They tend to be a bit more scarce, but it's still quite fun to be able to deal with a customer on the other side of the world, as it doesn't really matter if you're online, does it?
No, it doesn't. I'm trying to find some more local business as well in Wiltshire, and I visited a bed and breakfast the other day, and it was to redo the website, and I'm so glad I went there, because actually it was so different to how it looked from their existing website. Going there really made a difference to get a proper feel for it. So yeah, I mean, you can work from anywhere, but for anyone, but I think there's something nice about having local business too. Okay, and
I totally agree, and it really helps if you can understand the person's business as much as you possibly can, not just the fact that they want a website and yes, I can build you one, and I think it should look like this. It's far better if you get in at the beginning and have a proper dialogue. And yes, sometimes you tend to sort of become more of a business consultant when you're talking to them about the whole business of putting their operation on the web in whatever shape or form that is. But it does pay dividends in the end if you put the work in up front. I find that certainly most of my customers remain customers going forward, and that's really what I'm after.
I was going to ask, how long do you normally keep a customer for? What's your sort of lifetime of a customer? Because you offer the support and ongoing support and maintenance and so on.
I do, yeah, and I always start talking about what it means to have and run a website as quickly as I possibly can in the process. Certainly, if it's going to be a WordPress website, people often don't know about WordPress, and why should they? They don't understand that WordPress is more of a sort of an online application or a piece of software that needs maintenance, it needs updating, it needs tinkering with and tender loving care. They don't know any of that, so it's an opportunity right up front to discuss those sorts of things with them. And very often, the people that come to me, they don't really want to be running their website day to day, I find. Some of them will do some of it. So, I work with a couple of people who do their own posts and, put in their own events, etc. But they really don't want to be bothered with the rest of it. And that's where I come in. So having that discussion up front allows me to say, well, look, these are the bits that you might want to do, and I'll do the rest.
How do you phrase your pitch to potential leads? do you kind of phrase it as, hey, this will be a website, we're going to use WordPress, or do you just not mention that and you know that's a tool that we're going to use because you're trying to promote increase in their bottom line?
I try and avoid talking about the tools and the technology. I try and avoid talking about that if I can up front, unless the client comes in and says, I want a WordPress website, which I don't think's ever happened to me. Then I won't talk about it, and I reserve in the background, the possibility of not doing the site in WordPress. It might just be an HTML site, and I've done a couple of those in the recent past. But it all goes back to the initial discussion. I could deal with a client who, on the face of it, just needs a simple one-page HTML site that looks reasonably good. But part of the discussion also has to be, well, what do you want the website to be doing initially, but what do you want it to be doing in, say, 12 months' time or 2 years' time? And that might mean that I, get rid of the idea of doing it in HTML and doing it in WordPress instead, because then I've got the option of adding these features later on down the line. I've also got the option of talking to them about additional features to see if those are of interest as the relationship progresses. So, there's so much that needs to be done at the beginning. There's a temptation to overload them with too much information and too much stuff to think about. So you do have to sort of drip it in gradually, but it's important to get those things ironed out at the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. So if you've got any questions for Paul, then give us a tweet out on Twitter using the UK Genesis hashtag. So Paul, what's your workflow from the initial lead? Then how do you sort of get someone from lead to sale to onboarding to delivery?
Okay, it's not a set process. So people say they've got an organic process, which for me tends to mean that they kind of make it up as you go along. But there is a process there. I think initially most of my work comes to me through referral. I do have a website, and it was always awful until about 6 months ago when I redid it. It's not very comprehensive, but it's a lot better than it was. And I do get some people come to me via the website, but I also get a lot of word of mouth referrals from existing customers, and I find also that I get a fair bit of referrals from the links on the bottom of client websites. So they'll click through to me, fill out a contact form, and that's they'll come through to me that way. After an initial contact, which is usually going to be an email or maybe a quick phone call from them to me, I now send people to a qualification form that I put together using Gravity Forms. I forgot the name then immediately. So I sort of cobbled this together from various sources, and I have to say it's been the most. It's just had the biggest impact because I can send people off to this form. They can fill it in, and it makes them think about what it is they want to achieve with, if they're coming to me for a website. It also means that the information that comes out of that to me is incredibly valuable, and I don't have to tease that information out on a phone call that might last an hour or half an hour. And that might not result in me doing business with them, and in which case I've lost that time. So if anyone's thinking about maybe doing a qualification form or not doing one, I'd say do one because they work. So once that comes through to me, I can then either say to the client, it doesn't look like we're a good fit, but there is someone over here who could help you. Would you like me to refer you to them? Or I can pick up the phone and schedule a conversation with them, which is more detailed, because I've already got quite a lot of information to go on, and we can move forward quite quickly through that. So that's the second thing. Usually that then sort of transitions into a bit of a back and forth, usually by email. So I invite people to ask me as many questions as they want. Just fire me an email. I also need to ask them questions. So we'll cover a lot of that on the phone, but then after the phone conversation, there'll be a bit of back and forth with me, suddenly remembering that I forgot to ask them about this, and then popping that off to them. And I do warn them that there is a process of discovery to go through, which does mean questions and answers, for a little bit of time. And once we got to the end of that, I will normally then put a written proposal together. So it's not an extensive document, but it does go through my sort of version of what I think the website needs to do, what it's for, who is it for, probably with a mock-up in there somewhere. And mock-ups can be as simple as a line drawing on a dot grid pad. Dot grid pad's really, really useful, by the way. Or I might have cobbled something together, in Photoshop or some other package, just to give them an idea of what I think it should look like, the major sections, etc., etc. And then once we've gone through a little bit of back and forth at that stage, then I rely heavily on the documents that the more formal documents. So I use a document called a scope of work, where I'm fairly detailed about what will be included in the project build and what won't be included. Set of terms and conditions which go along with that. So again, people, I hope they read it. I've tried to word them in a sort of a friendliest way as possible, but they do go through all the sorts of nitty-gritty bits and bobs which are important to me, and that I need them to agree to. And then finally a contract, which goes out with those other two documents. And the contract document is a one-pager where they basically agree the scope of work and the terms and conditions and sign on the dotted line.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a bit lengthy, but
I was going to say, sounds comprehensive. That's good. That's what we want to know. Do you use any particular tools to managing any of that? Any proposal writing software or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, no. I've looked. I've looked at a couple of online tools in the past, and the names escape me now. Was one of them called BidSketch? Was it? I think.
Yeah, BidSketch, Quote Roller, Proposify.
That was the other one. Yeah. It was probably a bit overkill for what I needed at the time. So instead of going with those, I put together a sort of templates of each of those documents, and they tend to evolve with each client. So I'll be adding bits to them, maybe taking bits away, but I keep those as templates, and then for each new customer, I use that as a basis to start with, and then sort of add in the bits I need. When I put those documents together, I sort of looked around the web. I looked at other people's terms and conditions, and various other sources, and sort of took the bits that made sense to me and included them. I'm not a lawyer. And I haven't had them looked at by a lawyer, but obviously you could do that if you want to do. But I was fairly confident that, as long as I asked people to read and sign these things, that there wasn't anything in there that was too controversial.
Yeah, it's more about setting expectations sometimes as well, isn't it? So
absolutely, yeah.
I was going to ask you a question, and it's gone now. What was it?
It will come back.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, that's right. Do you do value-based pricing, or fixed price pricing, or hourly pricing?
No, I don't do hourly-based pricing for website projects. I much prefer to go through. It's not a lengthy process. It probably sounded like it when I was talking about it. It probably sounded quite lengthy, but it doesn't have to be. But what it does do, based on your interaction with the client and the experience that you pick up over the years of doing this sort of work, it does mean that I can put a price on a project. If the project has a clearly defined start and finish, and the contents are well understood by both parties, then I don't really have a problem about putting a figure on that, because I've got the documents to back it up. So halfway through the build, if the client says, oh, by the way, can you just change all of this and add these new sections in that we didn't tell you about at the beginning, I can say, well, yes, we can look at doing that, but it wasn't in the original scope of work, so I can cost that for you, and we can either include it in this build or we can do it after we've launched, up to you. But at least there's something to refer back to that both parties have seen. So I tend to go for project-based pricing. I do have an hourly rate, but I don't use it for website development projects. It's usually, I'll say, if someone wants a one-off job, I'll say, to give them an idea of cost, I'll tell them that my hourly rate is X amount, and I estimate that this small job might take me 8 hours, so work that out. But it is pretty rare. Value-based pricing, yeah. I haven't used it per se. However, I think there's a lot of useful there's good useful ideas behind the principle of value-based pricing, and I know Ben and lots of other people talk about it a lot, and I think I think to a certain extent he's right. Where it really sort of chimes with me is doing your research on a new client. So if a new client comes to me, rings me, leaves a message, or emails me, before I get back to them, I go through a couple of steps. So I'll try and figure out who they are, where they're based, do they have a current website, so I'll Google search them. If they look like they're a limited company, I'll go onto Companies House and I'll look them up. And I know Ben mentioned doing this the other day, and when he mentioned it on, I think it was on Carrie Dills's podcast, when he mentioned it, I just threw my hands up in the air and went, yes, someone else does what I do.
He's giving away all your secrets, though. That's the problem.
I mean, I don't know whether you guys do this, but there's a lot of information on Companies House which is freely available. It can give you an idea of potential client circumstances, and if they need a website and that website potentially is going to generate more business, then you can start to see what impact that might have and what they might be willing to to have included in the project, and you can start to sort of frame the project accordingly. So I think there's merit in it, but I wouldn't say that I use it wholeheartedly. As I say, I tend to go for project-based pricing, but with lots of those influences coming in.
I definitely +1 that about checking out the company on Company House. I had an inquiry come through, and it was, will you provide support and maintenance for this website? I had a look at the website. It looked really, really nice, but it wasn't Genesis. So I was just about to fire back, no, because it's not Genesis, and give them some suggestions. But there was something really familiar about the email address of the person who had emailed me, because they sort of said, we're an agency, we've built this site, would you do the ongoing maintenance? And so then I looked them up on Companies House, and it's a very big agency. I can't say who, obviously, and it was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to say yes, I can, because I'm thinking further down the line it might be quite nice to do some more work with them. So yeah, it's good to try and get that kind of knowledge about who you're dealing with, first of all, I think.
Absolutely.
Whether it is a one-man band with very limited budget, or whether it's a large company that's doing multi-million-pound projects and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, it can show you a lot. Companies house is one thing. Have they got a Twitter account? How active is that? What sort of things do they tweet? Are they on LinkedIn? Do they keep these things up to date? It all gives you a better picture of who you're about to deal with before you actually start to deal with them. So doing your homework, I think, yeah, definitely, good idea.
So Jackie's asked questions, and hello Jackie, I was getting worried that we hadn't heard from you, so I'm glad to hear you're all right. She wants to know, do you offer any other services to your clients after the project's finished? So you already mentioned ongoing support and maintenance, but she asked about content creation, marketing strategy, or SEO.
Okay, yeah, good question. Hi, was it Jackie, was it?
Jackie, yeah.
Hello. Yes, apart from support and maintenance, the one thing that is becoming, thankfully, increasingly popular is email marketing. So I've been using Campaign Monitor now for a long time, and I'm aware of new contenders like Drip, for example, sort of nudging me for attention. But email marketing, I find with clients they haven't even thought about it mostly. Mostly they haven't thought about it. It's, in my view, it's still the most powerful way for somebody who's got a web business to interact with their clients. I've got a couple of e-commerce sites that I look after, and they make good use of email marketing to basically drive sales and keep their brand current in people's mailboxes, and it's still dramatically effective. So I find that email marketing is something that you can talk to a client about if they've not thought about it before. You can start the education process with them. Tell them about the process of building a mailing list and how powerful that can be as a marketing tool. So that's definitely one that's uppermost. SEO, I don't promise people SEO services over and above building the sort of on-page optimization processes into the original project. So I make sure that that's in there, and I make sure that they know that's in there. But I don't want to, because it's just too dangerous. Google keeps shifting things around. Anybody in the SEO world, I don't know how they sleep at night. So I tend not to, promise people, first page of Google and all that sort of stuff. But I do make sure they understand that on-page optimization, getting your tags right and all of that sort of stuff is important, and I build those things into the projects, and I also educate them if they're going to do their own posts. I show them how to fill out the boxes in the Yoast plugin, etc. What was the other one she said? I can't remember.
Content creation. So. Content
creation. No. I don't. I'm not a writer, although I do enjoy writing, and I wish I had more time to do writing and blog posts because I love it. And if you take a look at my website, you'll see how much minimal amount of content is on there. So I've got loads of drafts, and if I could find the time to write them all, I'd be really happy. But I don't do content creation, but I do offer it to people if they ask for talking, if they talk to me about content or content marketing, then I'm quite happy to refer them to people that I've come across who might be able to help them with that. There are some excellent online services as well. There's Copify, which I've used before, and one or two others.
So how did you get into the website designing and building business?
Right. Well, my background, similar to yours, is technology training and support. I sort of fell into that by accident in the mid-90s. There's a thing with me, whatever I'm doing, I'm always sort of thinking, well, maybe I I'd be happier if I was doing something else. So I'm always sort of looking over the fence to see what's going on next door. So I was working in music shops and management training of all things, teaching managers how to do appraisals and stuff like that. But on the side, I was very interested in the new HTML build a web page thing, which was just getting going, and also databases. So I wrote a database to deal with customer complaints, and I gave it to the managing director's secretary, and she raved about it so much that I thought, well, actually, maybe I should switch to technology. So I did. I became an IT trainer, and taught people Windows, NT, a terrible web design package called what was it called now? Now I forget. Front page.
Front page.
Do you remember that?
I do.
Front page, and I still see front page websites dotted. You can recognise them, can't you, when you see them on the web? Anyway, so technology training, and then I dropped out of that because I think I lasted 2 or 3 years in that, doing all sorts of, I even taught Visual Basic for a while, which was way outside of my comfort zone, but there you go. And then from there, I went into IT support, working with retail businesses, and then I went into systems administration, and I took my Microsoft exams, MCSE, MCSE messaging and all that good stuff, and a bit of security and a bit of Cisco. Then the company I was working for got sold, and they said, if you want to keep working for us, you've got to move to Birmingham. I've got nothing against Birmingham. And actually, where I would have been working was a very leafy suburb of Birmingham, and it was really nice, but I just couldn't face moving. So I quit and went to India for about 4 months, took all my Microsoft exams, had a week's holiday and came back, and then I started my own business, doing computer support for small businesses and domestic customers. And I'd go and fix printers and repair Windows XP and stuff like that. And a couple of people asked me to do if I could do a website for them, a couple of businesses. So I did a website for them, and then that started to take off a little bit more. And yeah, I kind of just created PCA Web, which is stands for Personal Computer Assistance Web, the web wing of PCA, and the PCA bit's now gone, and it's all web. And I've still got the name PCA Web because I can't decide whether to change it or not.
That's a difficult question, isn't it? To come to that. So you said initially that you always find that whatever you're doing, you're always looking for. Would you find something else more interesting? Are you currently right now trying to think, is there something else that I could be doing that would be more interesting?
My thing at the moment is I'm always learning, and what I do, because I work alone, maybe this resonates with you guys as well, because I work alone on customer projects, then I'm always really focused about getting the job done, and I will get the job done to my best of my ability, but it means that I am not a hardcore coder or programmer. I can do it, and I'd love to spend my entire time messing about with Grunt, Gulp, and all the the other new kids on the block, and I do. I spend a lot of time doing learning courses and messing about these things when I can. But my day to day, I've got to really focus and have to really focus on delivering projects for people. So the amount of time that I've got to spend on that is fairly limited. So yeah, that's the fence I'm looking over at the moment. But it's a useful one because I've the utmost respect for people who are hardcore coders, and it's great to keep up to date with what's going on with the the workflows, is something I follow avidly on Slack, the workflow group. Just trying to improve, what I'm doing, make myself be able to produce things faster by using some of this stuff. But I'd like to have more time. So yeah, that's the fence I'm looking at.
Did you watch any of the workflow sessions on Genesis Camp?
Yes, I did. Actually, I picked up a couple of really good ones on the work camp, which was excellent, by the way. And if people missed it, I don't know. Did people know that it's on YouTube? If they search for it, all of the
it's all there. I think you can still go to genesis.camp, and I think there's links under the sessions so you can view things, or you can just search for it on YouTube as well.
But yeah, I mean, there was a guy who did a presentation on Vagrant, building Vagrant into your workflow. He rattled through it, but it was excellent. And Vagrant is something I should probably not mess around with, but I have been. It's geeky, but it's good. So that one was good. Dave Dean, the WP Musketeer guy, who is a top chap, and his session was called Hot Toddy, which was absolutely superb. What was the other one? Was it Juan Rangel? He did a session on not reinventing the wheel, which I recommend. I mean that guy, he breezed through it. But if you can keep up with him, what he was doing was just superb. So yeah, I guess the other one I'd mention would be Bodie Quirk's session on setting up your Mac. I mean, I've actually copied what he's done, and it's revolutionary. My downloads folder is now not a million miles long, and everything is sorted out into nice little folders. So if he's watching, thanks for that. That's improved my life.
I have to say I've now got Hazel running as well, which is one of his recommendations. So I haven't set it up as smoothly as what I'd like to yet, but at least I've got things that are kind of been tagged with colours that I can say, okay, well that's over a week old in my downloads folder. I can probably delete it and go from there. So a couple of quick questions that had come in. One from Chris Mitchell actually came from the Slack channel, but thank you, Chris. He says, because most of the work is through referrals, does this tend to be that all clients are within the same niche, i.e. all your work is within a certain niche?
No, it doesn't. I deal with people from running all different sorts of businesses. I suppose an example would be I have dealt with for a number of years now a small business that sells candles. They manufacture and sell candles, and they're based near Glastonbury. Very successful business. But in their business life, they deal with suppliers and people that supply them with the raw materials. They're sort of upstream from what they're doing, and also people that they deal directly with. People in the same niche, but yeah. So in that particular instance. One of the manufacturers that supplies them with raw materials contacted me because they'd talked to the business owner and he recommended me. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it's. I suffer because I'm in a small niche. No, not at all. And to a certain extent, if you are in a small niche, that's probably a good thing too, because you can sort of hone your offering accordingly. So I think my answer would be no. I don't suffer at all from that because I get requests from lots and lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds, and that really does, for me, it keeps it interesting as well. It's really nice to learn about how people do business, and there's a lot of I get a lot from comparing one with another, and although I don't share details and secrets about one business to another, so you have to respect confidentiality there a bit, but you can things can cross-pollinate, and you can talk about something that you've discovered someone doing really well, and that might help somebody else that you are dealing with.
Yep. One more business question, again from Jackie. So if you've got any more questions, get them in on Twitter, please. UK Genesis hashtag. If you don't want to just tweet globally, then do it at UK Genesis, and obviously we'll see that as well. She says, as a follow-up to her earlier question, what percentage of clients do you think realise an acceptable ROI from their website investment? Hopefully, all of them.
Well, that's a really good question. I think as I said before, a lot of people will come to me knowing that they want a website, but not really knowing why and what it's supposed to do. So I think, for those sorts of people, figuring out an ROI on their investment is quite a long way from what they've got in their head at that particular moment. Don't really think they're thinking in those terms at all. They might loosely be thinking, well, I want a website. I only want it so that I can, put my location up and my name, address, and phone number, and a little bit about the business. But I only want it as a brochure site, so therefore my budget for that is X amount, and that figure will depend on what they think it's worth. So I guess that sort of does loosely count. I don't know, it's a difficult question. I've never had somebody come to me and say, well, our website's been up and it cost us this much and we reckon it's produced this much business. Nobody's ever said that to me. I think they should be saying that to me, and I would love it if they did, because then I can have a conversation about Google Analytics, goals, and all of that sort of stuff. And for the e-commerce sites that I've worked on, we've got all of that set up in Google Analytics so they can see, where their visitors are coming from, how long they spend on the site, do they buy something, if they did, what was it, and all of that stuff is available. So for those customers, they can see a return on investment. And for the two that I've got in my mind, they really didn't have e-commerce websites before. They only had brochure sites. So, the money they're making through sales on those websites now is extra to what they were doing before. But no, I'd be surprised if somebody said to me, well, we want to build a website, here's our budget, and we want to recoup X amount within 12 months of launching the site. That's never happened.
Yeah. Okay, different businesses approach it different ways, and the way that one business sets out a goal of why they want a website is obviously going to be different to how another one wants it. So,
yeah.
Devinda asks, slightly more generic open topic question now. What's your views on the current premium Genesis themes market? Do you use premium themes out of the box for clients?
Devinda, yeah, this guy's everywhere, isn't he? He pops up everywhere, and he always has great questions as well. So thanks. Yes, I do use my natural instinct is to try and use Genesis for all the projects that come to me. Sometimes I can't for various reasons. But most of the time, my default reaction is to try and see if I can do the project in Genesis. So sometimes I'll use the example theme, that you can grab off the Genesis website. A lot of the time, I'll grab a premium theme, and I've worked on not all of them, but there's ones. Like the enterprise theme, for example, has been one that I've gone back to, time and time again. The parallax theme is another favourite. So I will, if I think I can get a head start by using a premium theme, and it's closer to what the client actually wants, having gone through that process, we talked about before. If it's close, then I'll choose the one that's closest, and then I will work on that. And to be honest, I mean, if you're talking about starter themes, then the starter theme is just a theme that gets you closer to your goal, as far as I'm concerned. So if there's a premium one that is closer, then use that.
Yep, excellent, thank you. The questions are starting to roll in now, so thank you very much. One from Craig Simpson. He says, how do you handle projects where the features or functionality required are outside of your comfort zone?
Well, that's a great question, and I think my answer to that will be take a step back and think about it, and ask yourself things like, is this a knee-jerk reaction? So if this request has come from a client, do they actually really want this? Do they know what they're talking about, or is this something that you could go back to them with and say, thanks for that request, but have you thought about doing it this way? So that's one thing. The other thing to think about is doing that in your comfort zone. So something that might take me 6 hours to do, would that take somebody else that I know 2 hours? And I suffer from many things, but I'm a bit of a control freak. I have found it very difficult to take a step back, not dive in and try and figure this stuff out myself if it's outside my comfort zone. My natural instinct is to dive in and do it. But I've come to realise and have been looking for an excuse to talk to other people within the community, within the Genesis community, for example, or outside of it, or within WordPress in general. And I had a situation recently, actually, within the last couple of months, where I was snowed under, and I really had nowhere to turn. I didn't want to turn this piece of work away. And so I contacted another Genesis developer, and we got a good rapport immediately, and basically I got her to do it for me whilst I worked on another client project, and it worked really well. I was overjoyed to make such a good contact, and I'm sure it'll happen again. And the whole experience was, everybody talks about playing to your strengths, but until you're actually in a situation where you have to do it, and then you do it and you realize how good it is to be working on one project while someone else is doing another project that has also come your way at the same time. That's just a joyous feeling. So
I mean, I completely agree. I mean, exactly the same position at the moment. I've just not taken on, but I've kind of subcontracted a couple of bits of work to other people from the Genesis Slack channel. I know at least one's watching now, if not both, and it's been absolutely fantastic. My main concern before I kind of took any subcontractors on, or took on the work of subcontractors, was, would the work be done in a way that I was happy with, that was up to the quality that I wanted, and would represent me and Gamma Joe Tech, me as my company. And you have to kind of step back and give them responsibility, and if necessary, give them feedback. But otherwise, it's your role then changes. So I spent kind of a lot more time doing kind of project management and saying, okay, well, what are your strengths? Okay, your strength is to do with ACF, right? I will work out and front end stuff. I'll give all that to you. Your strength is kind of workflows and something else. So I'll kind of guide that towards you, and that frees me up to do the project managing and some of the other tickets or different projects for different clients as well. So it's a hard step to take, and it's, I mean, unlike Joe, who kind of taken on employees, this is just a casual partnership, casual kind of contract, but it does make life interesting. It's good. It's a nice way to go, worth considering. So
it's great, and I know everybody talks about this stuff, but it's true. There are people out there easily contactable if you join, the Slack channel or whatever. And a lot of them are going to be better than you at the thing that you're struggling with. So why would you want to struggle with it for 6 hours when they could do it in 2? It's all about time when you're freelancing. It's all about time. And if you can be more productive with the time that you've got available and take on more projects and turn them over quickly, for me, it's really like a case of getting over yourself. There are people out there who are better than me at certain things, and I really just need to be able to trust them to do it properly.
Yep. Okay. We're going to shoot through 3 quick questions, 3 short answers, and then we've got our quick fire round anyway that we try and get through as well. We've got Devinder says, do you like profound code stuff like ACF, CMB, or seamless click-through Beaver Builder type of stuff? So you're not much of a coder, so do you prefer...
I missed that the end of that question there. Sorry.
Beaver Builder, so they're kind of page builder.
Yeah. I don't use them. They've had a bit of I'll try and keep this brief. There's a bit of a bad press and vibe around page builders being heavy and causing slowdowns and lags and the rest of it. I'm not sure how true that is. I have looked at Beaver Builder and Visual Composer and various others, and I sort of do keep up to date with them, but I don't tend to use them on my projects. The one that I have come across recently, and this was because I heard somebody talk about it on Genesis Camp actually, was the Web Dev Studios plugin, which helps you to do template parts, and I can't remember the name of it now, but it's WDS something. That looks really interesting, and the vibe around that is that it doesn't slow there's no load. Excuse me. So that I haven't looked at that, but I will be looking at that. But no, I don't use page builders. What was the other bit? Sorry, I forgot.
Just about ACF, CMB, or CMB.
Oh, yeah. And CMB2 I haven't used, but looks great. I have used ACF before when somebody wanted to do their own version of Rightmove, which they wanted to feature, properties for sale and rent. So I did it with ACF, and that was really good. So yeah, ACF's great.
Okay, we've got design@uk.com has sent us a message. Thank you. Is there an industry or profession that you would like to design for that you've not already done?
That's a great question. I really like working with charities, non-profits. I work with one called Open Storytellers in Frome in Somerset. They're just fantastic people, and I built them a site. I also, in the past, have done computer support for them, although they don't need me for that anymore. So our relationship now is just, around the website. But non-profits and charities, it's just fantastic working with people like that. It's so inspirational. So more of that, please. And also, I'm trying to figure out how to get into restaurants, cafes, and sort of food, that whole area as well. Because I think it might just be underserved in this country. So I'd really like to start working with those sorts of people as well.
Be careful of working with foodies. It can make you very, very hungry. I've done a lot of food blogs, and you've got this fantastic photography, and you're looking at all this amazing food, then you go and have a cheese sandwich for lunch. It's a bit rubbish, really. So beware what you ask for.
Yeah, okay, I'll bear that in mind. Thanks.
So last question then that we'll take from the audience for today is from Jackie. Says, I'm not quite sure how you're going to keep it short, but what are the tedious pain points in your development process, and how would you envision them improving in the future?
Oh, Jackie, you're asking difficult questions.
He's on fire.
Pain points. Yeah. It's not really a pain point, but I guess the most difficult thing is real initial stages of dealing with a new client that you've never dealt with before, and there's lots of unknowns, and you've got to try and, with your detective hat on, you've got to try and figure out in the best way you possibly can what it is they want and what their expectations are. So, I've talked a lot about having a process. it's always evolving, and it's never perfect. And there's always something that surprises me about having to do that. But I guess that's the biggest thing, and it's the most important thing, because it just really impacts on everything that happens down the line. So I guess that one. Launching is another one. I've done quite a lot of site migrations in the past, including all of my client sites from one provider to another. And migrating WordPress is something I just don't enjoy at all. It can be horrible. There are lots and lots of blog posts out there that claim to have the answer, but the fact is, it's not easy. And if it's a big site, if it's an e-commerce site, I mean, good luck.
Yeah,
so that's fairly painful.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the painful bits in most people's workflow. So, okay, we're going to absolutely fire through. That's the plan.
Okay,
quick fire round. So, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Deep sea diver.
Excellent, good choice. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Which code editor do you use?
I use Sublime Text 2. I don't know why I don't use 3. It's just 2, and I'll get around to it at some point. But I love Sublime Text; it's brilliant.
Yeah, there is a website if you use certain packages that you can do, like, can I upgrade to sublimetext3.com or something like that, and it will show you. Just drop in your Sublime config, and it says yes, all those now are supported in Sublime Text.
Okay, I'm on it. Thanks.
How do you manage your code snippets?
Okay, well, I've tried to try and sort of consolidate all my bits and bobs into Gistbox, which I find to be excellent. I've got a few on GitHub, and I've just recently discovered GitLab, which looks really interesting, and you can store your gists on there as well, and it's free.
Excellent, good recommendations there. Lots of tools for people to get into. What do you use for local host?
Okay, I use mostly MAMP and desktop server, but recently I've been messing with Vagrant because it appeals to the geekiness. But mostly it's MAMP.
What do you use to deploy sites?
Time and time again, I come back to using a combination of the Duplicator plugin, which is excellent, and an excellent script by Interconnect IT, Dave Coveney's business, called Search Replace DB2. If you haven't used it, haven't seen it, just Google it. It's great.
Yep. What do you use for design or wireframes or mockups?
I've got my trusty .grid grid-based A4 notebook, which is superb. I do quite a lot of design, like messing around with CSS in the browser. I use Pixelmator more often than I use Photoshop. Pixelmator is excellent, and there are some excellent resources from Rafal Tamal, who works for Studio Press. He makes those available for free on his website, so they're worth tracking down as well. What's
your #1 must-have plugin?
It's probably Gravity Forms. Everybody says Yoast, so we'll take that as read. But I also use SG Cache Press, which is a SiteGround plugin, because I use SiteGround for most of my hosting, and that's good. Yep. Oh, there's also a really interesting one called WP Pusher by Peter Soom, and that allows you to push code from your GitHub or Bitbucket repo, where the site is hosted on cheap hosting, and maybe you don't have access to the terminal. So it's a plugin. It's a WordPress plugin called WP Pusher, and it looks really good.
Have you written any public plugins or themes?
No, but I'm working on a plugin. You're no one until you've got a plugin, so I want one.
What do you think of the customizer? Are you a fan or not?
Yeah, it's okay. I wouldn't let any of my customers near it because it's tragic what they could do. So, I mean, to be honest, the kind of people that I deal with would never need to use Customizer. So, I tend to hide it from them, not because I don't want them to see it, it's because there's no occasion for them to use it.
What do you think of the Genesis 2.2 that's coming out? Have you tried it?
I haven't tried it yet, but the biggest thing for me is that it's got lots of accessibility stuff in there. So I'm really looking forward to checking that out. And I'm so pleased that accessibility is starting to be sort of built in as defaults to these sorts of things, particularly with Genesis. That's just so great. And if it's in there by default, people will learn about it and they'll use it, and it'll become de facto to work with bearing these things in mind. So yeah, it's great news.
And if people haven't seen, there's a great blog post by Rianne, who has documented all of the accessibility changes within Genesis 2.2 and how you can enable them and what you need to do in your child theme to be able to kind of make use of those accessibility features as well.
Excellent.
So on that note then, how much do you consider accessibility, internationalization, localization, right to left scripts when creating themes for clients?
Internationalization I haven't really touched, nor right to left. However, one of my clients is talking about doing a site soon which would need to be localized in different localizations languages. So that's coming along. Accessibility, yes. I'm always trying to pay attention to it. I've had some correspondence with Rianne in the past regarding her plugin, which is excellent. It caused an issue, a slight issue on my website. So I reported that, and we had a bit of a dialogue, and we fixed it. So everybody should at least check out the plugins, hers, and there's another one as well, the Joe Dalton one, I think.
Yeah, WP accessible.
Yeah. It's not going away, so build it into your workflow now.
Absolutely. Excellent. Okay, well, there's a couple of quickfire questions that we skipped over, but we got through most of them. That was good. That was quickfire round.
Yeah.
So just wrapping up then, thank you very much to everyone who's posted some questions on Slack and Twitter as well. Just before we finish, who would you most like to see on the podcast in the future?
I was thinking about this. There's a couple of people that have been really helpful to me just in recent weeks. Dave Dean, who I mentioned before. I'm not sure if you've had him on.
Not yet, but we have got him on. Bear with me. October.
He doesn't know that I'm saying this, by the way, so sorry, Dave.
We've got him booked in for October, so yeah.
Oh, excellent. Okay. He's really good. Somebody else who I'm so impressed with is Alan Schlesinger. Who I've sort of had a couple of bits of back and forth with on Slack. I mean, he's just amazing, and his presentation on the Genesis camp was outstanding. So I don't know if you've got him queued up, but I'd like to see an interview with him.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. Where can we find you online?
My website is pcaweb.io, and I'm also on Twitter at pca_UK.
Excellent. So, thank you very much for joining us today. The guest in 2 weeks' time is Gavin Priest. Orange Drop is who we've got in 2 weeks' time. Any final words, Joe?
No, just cheerio.
Thank you very much for joining us and co-hosting today. Any final words, Paul?
No, just thanks for asking me on. It was a great pleasure, and recommend it to anyone else thinking about coming on as well. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. And for everybody else, have a good week, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.